Ethan Joe's goddess flunked miserably because she never got the answers she was counting on. After finishing her last exam, she jumped off the rooftop. From that moment on, in Ethan's eyes, I became the murderer. He planned everything step by step, completely disrupting my life. While everyone turned against me and I was left with no one, I opened my eyes and found myself back on the eve of the college entrance exam. Ethan blocked me on my way home. We hadn't walked to or from school together in a long time. He'd been busy with something especially important lately. And I knew what it was. His beloved Sophia Lynn was conspiring with him to cheat on the exam. If I remembered correctly, in my previous life, just minutes from now, Ethan would look at me with hope and ask me to help him carry out this risky plan that could ruin both our futures. Last time, I firmly rejected him. That night, we had a heated argument. I was afraid he'd do something stupid and ruin his reputation, so I told his parents. Because I stopped him from helping Sophia cheat, he hated me for the rest of his life. He painted me as a vicious and immoral woman. In the trap of lies he created, I was eventually left alone, abandoned by everyone. So this time, I didn't even give him a chance to speak about his plan. Whether he cheated or not, whether he got caught or disqualified, none of it had anything to do with me. I used to warn him only because his parents were my godparents, but now, all I wanted was to stay far away from this foolish boy. Hey, Emily Chen, keep up. Ethan's voice pulled me back to the present. Right, he just said he wanted me to meet someone with him. I locked my bike in place and pressed the brakes hard, pretending to sigh in frustration. Ah, Ethan, I just remembered. I left my house key in the classroom. Go ahead without me. I need to go find it. Ethan looked a little disappointed and anxious. Didn't I see you put your key in your backpack earlier? Check again, maybe you're mistaken. I pretended to search my bag again and then shook my head helplessly. Nope, not here. I'll just go back for it. Don't wait for me. He had already arranged to meet Sophia Lynn at their usual spot. There was no way he would skip that for me. So without much hesitation, he waved and quickly disappeared into the sunset. Even though senior year was packed, there were only a few days left before the college entrance exam. Our teachers said we had already learned everything we needed to, and last-minute cramming wouldn't help much anymore. It was more important to stay calm and face the exam with the right mindset. So day students like Ethan and me were allowed to skip the evening self-study session if we applied for it. When I got home, I carefully calculated when Ethan might try to approach me again. As neighbors, even if I avoided him at school, all he had to do was ring the doorbell and my parents would let him in. He'd definitely find a chance to bring up the cheating plan. So that evening, I sat down and had a heartfelt conversation with my parents about moving into the dorms. I had always been their pride. Though we weren't rich, they gave me all the love and support I needed, and that allowed me to stay at the top of my class for years. But later, because of Ethan's manipulations, once I got into college, I became the rebellious child in their eyes. I went from being the model student to being labeled a scheming thief. Ethan even pretended to protect me. He held me in his arms and apologized to my parents on my behalf. I struggled to explain myself. That missing class fund, the money that showed up in my bag, someone must have planted it. But Ethan held me tightly and covered my mouth with his strong arm. At the same time, he kept repeating one line over and over. Emily knows she was wrong. Please, everyone, forgive her. I lost all of my school honors and became a thief everyone avoided. After the crowd had dispersed, Ethan pulled me into a tight embrace while I trembled with emotion. From the outside, it looked like he was gently comforting me. His hands rubbed my back, his expression was tender, and everyone around praised me for being lucky. Even if I had bad character, I had Ethan to clean up after me. But I was too drained to resist. As I leaned against him, completely exhausted, all I could feel was a cold chill radiating from his entire body. Ethan's voice was soft and gentle. He said, "The others may have forgiven you, but Sophia and I never will." From my past life experience, I had reached one solid conclusion. Ethan Zhao was completely unhinged. I could already imagine that even if I had agreed to cheat with them, the moment we got caught, they would throw all the blame on me. Since I couldn't afford to go up against him, the only option was to stay away. Fortunately, my excuse was reasonable enough. When my parents heard that I felt more motivated to study while on campus, they didn't hesitate at all and agreed to let me move into the dorms. The next day, I rode my bike to school early. To avoid running into Ethan, I left home a whole hour ahead of time. By the time I arrived, the morning reading session had already begun. I could almost feel the resentful gaze burning into my back. As soon as the bell rang for morning reading, I darted straight for the bathroom. Every time I saw Ethan looking like he wanted to approach me, I would grab my textbook and either run up to the teacher's podium or head to the office. Being the top student, curious and hardworking, it wasn't suspicious at all. It wouldn't make Ethan think I was avoiding him, and it certainly didn't give him a chance to talk to me. But my classmates weren't so lucky. They had already mentally checked out, ready to coast to the finish. Seeing me so active had them groaning. "Emily, seriously, give it a break. You're already ranked number 1. Who could possibly beat you at this point?" I just smiled bitterly to myself. Your struggles and mine clearly weren't the same. Still, all my efforts were paying off in some way. At night, after the final self-study session, my dormmates would link arms with me enthusiastically, begging me to help explain topics they hadn't fully grasped yet. Everyone was giving it their all, hoping to get into a good college. Everyone except Ethan. Maybe he finally realized I really was too busy to spare time for a cheating plan. Even if I agreed, there would be no time to discuss the details. So he stopped wasting his energy on me and started seriously studying and memorizing materials. Just like in my previous life, even if I wasn't involved, he still planned to pass the answers to Sophia Lynn. To be honest, I was pretty eager to see how it would all unfold. Sometimes, I'd stand by the railings of the school corridor and look down. The dappled light would scatter across the two of them as they stood together. Sometimes their shadows seemed inseparable. Other times, they looked distant and strained. It all felt a little surreal. But thankfully, everything was proceeding in an orderly way. I stopped paying attention to Ethan, because a grand and fiery battle was about to begin, and as one of the warriors heading into that battlefield, I felt my blood stir once more. When I walked into the exam hall, I instantly noticed Sophia Lynn looked nervous. But now, we were nothing more than strangers. After placing all my belongings in order, I calmly and confidently stepped into the room. Before taking our seats, we had to pass a metal detector scan to prevent anyone from bringing in cheating tools. When it was my turn, I passed through easily. But as I glanced at Sophia, the detector suddenly beeped. It only went off once, but Sophia looked like a startled bird, panicking as she faced the proctor. She stammered, I didn't bring anything except my pen." "Did you empty your pockets and bag? Are you sure you don't have anything metallic on you?" the teacher asked. I'll check again. Oh, I have a coin." I sat down, watching the scene unfold like a show. The two exam proctors exchanged glances. After a moment, the female teacher calmly said, "It's all right. Just put the coin in the student's storage pouch, then come back and pass through again." Sophia visibly relaxed. She moved slowly and stiffly, then stood again for the scan. This time, the detector stayed silent. Everyone let out a breath of relief. After all, this was the college entrance exam, the biggest test of our lives. No one wanted anything to go wrong, not the students, not the teachers. I raised an eyebrow and smirked slightly to myself. That coin? I had slipped it into her pocket when she wasn't paying attention. I had already figured out how they planned to cheat. Giving Sophia a little scare was my way of venting some of the resentment from my past life. In that life, it was Sophia Lynn who played the pitiful victim after jumping off the rooftop. She deliberately told Ethan it was my fault, even going so far as to falsely claim I liked him. She said I refused to pass him the answers because I was jealous, because I couldn't bear to see him help another girl. And unbelievably, Ethan had believed her completely. The fact that he took pleasure in torturing me as a form of twisted revenge, Sophia was responsible for half of that. I would never forget the way she cried, all tears and trembling lips when I rejected their cheating plan. She sobbed about how horrible her parents were, and how, if she didn't pass the exam, her whole life would be ruined. She said that if she didn't get into college, her parents would marry her off to some old man even older than her father. In my past life, I frowned as I listened to her sob story. Trying to be kind, I had suggested that once she got into college, she could support herself with part-time jobs. And who knows, if she did exceptionally well, it wasn't impossible for her to get into a good university. I told her, this is the 21st century. Even if they're your parents, they have no right to decide your marriage for you like that. You can work hard and break free from their control. But the moment Ethan Joe heard that, his face changed dramatically. He exploded at me, full of rage, shouting that I had no empathy and calling me a heartless hypocrite who kicked people when they were down. From then on, I learned, drop the savior complex. It's better for your mental health. That memory from my previous life ended abruptly when the sharp, urgent sound of the school bell rang throughout the campus. The first exam had officially begun. The first subject was Chinese. As everyone was focused, scribbling away, Sophia Lynn raised her hand. I glanced down at my nearly finished paper, then calmly looked over at her, watching her performance like a piece of theater. She clutched her stomach with one hand, while raising the other high in the air. "Teacher, my stomach hurts. I need to use the restroom." The invigilator, a sharp-eyed woman, gave her a long look, clearly reading her anxious expression. "Go ahead," she said. There were 2 proctors in the room, one male, one female. The female proctor accompanied Sophia as they walked out together. I kept a straight face, but inwardly, I sneered. Others might not know their plan, but I had heard it loud and clear. Right before the exam, all students were housed in pre-booked hotels to prevent tardiness. Because of that, I had accidentally overheard their entire plan. Ethan Zhao had let his guard down completely around me. He came by to deliver a ceremonial academic success robe that his parents had picked up from a temple for me. Just then, he got a call from Sophia. I pretended to know nothing and said I needed to use the restroom, so he felt no need to hide anything and began discussing everything in my room. I conveniently walked back out at the perfect time. In my last life, thanks to my warning, Ethan never had time to prepare any cheating tools, not under his parents' watchful eyes. He couldn't finalize any detailed plan. But this time, he'd clearly made thorough preparations. He had a discreet miniature communication device, one that probably cost him his entire stash of pocket money. They had agreed to use coughing signals to transmit answers. Right now, Sophia's mission was to retrieve the device that had been hidden earlier in the girls' bathroom. Ethan had made a compartment in the sole of his shoe specifically to hide it. They thought the plan was flawless. Once inside the exam hall, he could simply pretend to tie his shoelace to retrieve the device, and his long hair would naturally block anyone's view. But I waited, and Sophia never returned to her seat. Time flew by. Just as I expected, a sudden announcement echoed through the classroom. "We suspect a violation of examination regulations during this session. Candidates are reminded to conduct themselves properly. There are 10 minutes remaining." I couldn't stop my lips from curling into a smirk. My eyes unconsciously drifted back to the empty seat. "Ethan Joe, who would have thought your precious goddess couldn't even make it through the first subject before getting caught? Funny. Last time, without your help, she at least managed to finish all the exams before she jumped. But now? Caught in the very first session. What are the 2 of you going to do now?" Still, I underestimated how shameless people could be. Right after the exam ended, I was stopped by the proctors. A few stern-looking teachers led me into the office. As expected, I saw Sophia Lynn standing among a group of faculty. Her face was drained of color, her frail body trembling non-stop. Clearly, she understood the consequences of getting caught cheating in the college entrance exam. Though I looked down on her, I was confused. Why had they called me in? The moment Sophia saw me, a glint of satisfaction, almost vengeful, flashed in her eyes. Something about it felt wrong. Before I could even process what was happening, she turned to me with a pitiful look. "Emily Chen. I'm sorry. We've been caught." If I still didn't understand what was going on at this point, then I'd have to be an idiot. So that's why I hadn't seen Ethan around. He was trying to drag me into the mess instead. I looked at her, confused. "What are you talking about? I don't even know you." My voice was calm, puzzled, as if I genuinely had no idea who she was. Sophia must have expected that reaction. She immediately choked back sobs and cried out, Emily, stop pretending. We got caught cheating. You can't seriously expect me to take all the blame by myself. If Sophia Lynn doesn't go into acting, it would honestly be a waste of her talent. I didn't hold back as I cut through her pitiful act. Stop pretending, I said coldly. Not even a single tear? What's the point? I didn't bother arguing with her further. Instead, I shifted my attention to the proctors nearby. There were 6 or 7 teachers in the office now, all staring at me with guarded expressions, clearly expecting a reasonable explanation. I let my gaze sweep across them, then said clearly and calmly, Teachers, I don't know why this student is trying to frame me, but I'd like to ask her directly, do you have any evidence that proves I was your accomplice? Sophia was clearly unprepared. Other than being able to say my name, she had no solid proof. Classmate, I'm ranked number 1 in the grade, I added. Plenty of people know my name. Do you really think that alone is enough to accuse me? My composure stood in stark contrast to Sophia's anxious, panicked behavior. Wanting to end this farce quickly, I began presenting my recent whereabouts, including witnesses who could confirm I hadn't had any contact with her. From the day I moved into the dorms until now, I had always been surrounded by classmates. The girls I studied with each night could all vouch for me. In that moment, I couldn't help but feel thankful I hadn't gone with Ethan Zhao to meet Sophia. If I had, no matter how false the accusations were, defending myself would have been a nightmare. Sophia kept insisting we communicated by phone. I couldn't help but laugh when she said that. With a bright smile, I looked at her. If we really spoke on the phone, then what's the number you dialed? I think it's important you show the teachers the evidence. Otherwise, well, you do know what the penalty is for slander, right? Sophia confidently recited a phone number. In my past life, Ethan had indeed given her my number. But this time I had already canceled that number 2 weeks ago. Clearly, neither of them had noticed. Go ahead, dial it, I said. She did. We all listened to the robotic voice on the other end. The number you have dialed is no longer in service. I folded my arms and tilted my head. Well, anything else you'd like to explain? Sophia turned ghostly pale. That can't be. Ethan gave me that number. It has to be right. She mumbled, stunned. I gave a slight smirk. No problem. Just make sure you say the same thing when you're talking to your lawyer. It finally dawned on her that her careless lie could now be used against her in a lawsuit. She stood frozen, trembling, eyes darting around as if desperately searching for another excuse. But the teachers weren't fools. One look at her guilty expression and they'd had enough. Sophia Lynn, one of the proctors barked. We'll ask you one last time, who else was involved in the cheating? It was just me. I was the only one, she stammered. I was honestly surprised. Even in this situation, she didn't drag Ethan Zhao down with her. I had no intention of suing her, at least not for now. At this crucial moment, I didn't want anything to do with either of them. The proctors, having confirmed I wasn't involved, gently comforted me and told me not to let this incident affect my performance. They even wished me luck on the rest of my exams. As I exited the exam hall, I ran straight into Ethan Zhao, who was standing anxiously at the gate, scanning the crowd. Since the ordeal had delayed me, most of the other students had already left, and the area was nearly empty. There was no way to pretend I didn't see him. He rushed up to me in a panic. Emily, is Sophia okay? Even though I felt an overwhelming urge to punch this idiot, I held myself back. I stared at him coldly, then took 2 steps back to widen the distance between us. Sophia, who's that? Ethan looked confused, probably thinking I'd forgotten. You know, the really pretty, sweet girl I told you about before. She's my goddess, I mentioned her to you. Her name's Sophia Lynn. I lowered my head and pretended to think for a moment. Doesn't ring a bell. But she's my goddess, he insisted. Why would you not remember her? Well, she's your goddess, I said calmly. Why are you asking me about her? Shouldn't you go find her yourself? I can't go to her right now, he replied, clearly anxious. She got caught cheating and was taken away by the exam proctors. I heard you were in the same exam room, so I wanted to ask how she's doing. My expression didn't change, but my eyes widened in mock shock. Wait, you're talking about the girl who tried to frame me just now? Ethan still had no idea what was going on. I gave Ethan Zhao a quick look of disgust, up and down. Ethan, I said sharply, your goddess is a pathological liar. she got caught cheating and tried to pin it on me, said I was her accomplice. The teachers are grilling her right now, trying to get her to give up the name. But I doubt she'll say anything for a while. I caught the nervous look flashing across Ethan's face. But when I added that Sophia Lynn still refused to give him up, something like guilt and emotion flickered in his eyes. As I brushed past him, I overheard him muttering to himself, "Sophia really is such a kind-hearted girl." Kind-hearted? Ethan clearly hadn't cared at all about the fact that she tried to frame me. Not only that, he had casually given away my contact information. He was no better than her. At the end of the day, all he cared about was whether Sophia would betray him or not. As long as he was safe, she was still a good girl in his eyes. But something in my gut told me this wasn't over. Sure enough, that afternoon, after the math exam, Ethan's parents came to pick him up, saying there was some kind of urgent matter. He would be going to the exam hall on his own the next day. Because Sophia got caught cheating during the first subject, the Education Bureau had disqualified her from the rest of the college entrance exams. She wouldn't be allowed to take the test again for the next 3 years, and it would be permanently noted in her academic record. But there was something I couldn't quite figure out. In my last life, Ethan had tried to jump off a building just because he didn't do well on the test. Yet this time, even after being caught cheating, he hadn't done anything drastic. In my memory, Sophia Lynn was someone extremely manipulative and good at hiding her true nature. There was no way she'd just let this go. But for now, what mattered most was focusing on finishing the rest of my exams properly. When I wrote down the final answer on my test, I suddenly felt a sting at the tip of my nose. Right now, I was still that confident, unstoppable Emily Chen, full of potential. I wasn't the disgrace everyone avoided, or the girl buried under rumors of scandal. As I stepped out of the exam hall, the bright sunlight poured down on the cheerful faces of all the students around me. I couldn't help but smile too. But when I got home, I noticed something odd. Someone had splashed red paint all over the wall near the entrance of Ethan Joe's house. There were big, bright, angry words written across it. Insults, curses. I felt a flicker of surprise. My mom, spotting me staring at the wall from our window, hurried me inside. "Emily, stop staring. Come upstairs." Noticing the serious look on her face, I went straight up. I had just set my things down when she started talking, not even asking how my exams went. "Emily," she said, "you really need to stay away from Ethan from now on. That boy's gotten himself into serious trouble. People have started coming to the house, and it's not something you can just brush off. His parents, your godparents, got so upset they ended up in the hospital." I was stunned, trying to process what she just said. But Mom wasn't done. "Oh, and if you go visit them at the hospital in a few days, make sure you don't bring up the college entrance exam. Ethan missed the last 2 days because he had to clean up the mess he made. Says he's going to repeat the year. Don't say anything that'll make it worse." If I could have set off fireworks in that moment, I would have let the whole town celebrate my relief. From my mom's explanation, I finally pieced together the full story. So that's why Sophia had been so quiet this time. She had a backup plan. Turns out, on the night of the first exam, Sophia's shameless parents had shown up at Ethan's house. They insisted that their daughter had only cheated because Ethan pushed her into it. They threatened that unless they were paid off, they'd report Ethan to the education board. One minute, Ethan was singing Sophia's praises. The next, he was being blackmailed because of her. After Ethan got home, he, being the absolute fool that he was, still tried to defend her. He told his parents to go ahead and let them report her. He was so confident Sophia would never betray him. In reality, Sophia had completely brainwashed him. She'd pretended to be someone who would protect Ethan's name at all costs. And during the heated argument with Ethan's parents, she'd even let it slip that she had already slept with him. Just like that, Sophia's parents escalated the whole issue, threatening legal action for statutory rape. Boom. Next thing you know, Ethan's parents ended up in the hospital from the shock. My mom summed it up perfectly. "Ethan just turned 18 and already has himself a wife, huh?" Her tone was dripping with sarcasm and disgust. I couldn't help but laugh. That's my mom, all right. The good luck charm Ethan's parents had given me before the exam was still in my pocket. Out of decency, and the fact they were still my godparents, I figured I should pay them a visit. I had barely reached the hallway outside the hospital room when I heard shouting from inside. Our Zhou family will never accept Sophia Lin as our daughter-in-law. 50,000 in dowry? Why don't you just rob a bank? I paused. That voice, it was Mrs. Zhou. 50,000? Most regular families would have to save for decades to come up with that. You think 50 grand is too much? Another voice snapped back. If it weren't for my daughter taking the fall for that cheating scandal, your son wouldn't even have the chance to repeat the exam. And we haven't even started holding you accountable for your son sleeping with my daughter. So don't you dare act like you're doing us a favor. That 50,000 is us being generous. It's the price of keeping your son out of jail. To be fair, Sophia Lin's parents weren't completely illogical. But seeing that this argument was nowhere near ending, I figured I'd better not get involved. No need for collateral damage. I quietly turned, still holding the bag of fruit I had brought, and made my way toward the stairs. I could visit another day. I was casually waiting by the staircase when a familiar voice called out behind me. Emily Chen. You came to see my parents? I turned to see Ethan Zhou. He looked like a complete mess after just 2 days. Unshaven, sunken eyes bloodshot, like the life had been drained out of him. Honestly, I hadn't planned on seeing him. I was already preparing to make up an excuse and slip away. Oh, I wanted to visit them, but I couldn't find the room. I've got something urgent to take care of, so I'll come another time. Just then the elevator dinged, and I stepped toward it without hesitation. But Ethan was quicker. He reached out and stopped me from entering. His hesitant, conflicted expression made me frown. I asked, a little impatiently, "What now, Ethan?" Without saying a word, he pulled me aside into the stairwell, without my permission. He hesitated for a moment, clearly struggling to get the words out, but then finally said it. "Can I borrow some money?" I narrowed my eyes, studying this once proud golden boy. Without the college entrance exam to define him, he had become small and desperate. Honestly, it suited him. I had no desire to hear the full story. "No money," I replied flatly. "I'm leaving." Maybe I'd been too blunt, because Ethan's face immediately twisted with frustration and resentment. "We've known each other for years. You're not even going to ask what I need it for." I looked at him with clear disgust. "I don't care what you need it for. I said I don't have money." Ethan's exhausted, hollow eyes stared at me like a shadow, then he gritted his teeth and said, "Sophia's pregnant. I need money for her abortion." I let out a casual, "Oh," then kindly offered some advice. "Ask your parents." "Are you stupid or just pretending to be?" he snapped. "My parents are in the hospital because they found out about me and Sophia. You think I'd dare ask them for money?" I laughed. "You're too ashamed to ask your parents, but you're not too ashamed to ask me? Your precious goddess nearly ruined my entire college future. And you still think I'd lend you money?" I stared him down. "Even if I had money, which I don't, I still wouldn't give you a single cent." I made sure to spell it out, clearly and completely, before turning to leave. But Ethan blocked my path again. This time, his nice guy mask finally cracked. He glared at me with anger and accusation. "Emily Chen, all you care about is how Sophia framed you. But if it weren't for you, she never would have gotten caught. She wouldn't have been disqualified." Now that was a new take. "You're saying I'm the reason Sophia got caught cheating?" I narrowed my eyes. "You'd better explain that one real carefully, Ethan." He scoffed, then said with absolute conviction, "From the start, Sophia wanted to do well on the exam. And the first person we thought of was you. I mean, we've been friends for years. I trusted you. You're the top student. Passing answers would have been easy for you. I was planning to talk to you about it, but you were so obsessed with studying that I couldn't get a word in. That's why I had to use another test room to pass her the answers instead." He stared at me like I owed him something. "Think about it. If you'd just taken a little time to care about me, asked how I was doing, the three of us could have made a proper plan together. If it had been you helping her, Sophia wouldn't have been caught," he said. "This is really your fault. You're just too selfish." A crisp, loud clap echoed through the stairwell. "Well done, Ethan Zhou." That performance deserved applause, and I actually did clap, laughing as I did. He had managed to twist everything so absurdly that I, who had stayed completely uninvolved, was now being blamed for sins I didn't commit. And suddenly, I was reminded of how in my past life he had done the exact same thing. I still remembered how he stood righteously in front of my parents and declared it was Emily Chen who encouraged Sophia to jump off the roof before the exam. Because his own life had been relatively smooth, he assumed everyone else's should be too. He didn't just kick others when they were down, he humiliated classmates from broken families, flaunted his grades to destroy their self-esteem, and painted me as someone inherently selfish and cruel. Because of what he said, my parents had been deeply disappointed in me. They believed that even though I had good grades, I lacked character. They scolded me harshly and locked me in my room to reflect on my supposed behavior. And now, he was at it again, pushing all the blame onto someone else, wrapping himself in a cloak of morality. If you didn't help him, you were heartless. If you exposed him, you were malicious. He was always the noble victim. But if that was how he wanted to play it, then fine. No more pretending. Since he'd thrown away his dignity, I had no reason to give him mine. If he'd been two-faced in the last life, then this time, I would return every ounce of it to him. I didn't hold back my voice. The stairwell wasn't a stage, but for dealing with someone like Ethan Joe, a fake saint, rage was the most effective tool. Without hesitation, I burst out of the stairwell. Before Ethan could react, I was already sprinting toward his parents' hospital room. When I arrived, Sophia Lynn and her parents were still inside. I didn't care. I walked straight in and raised my voice. Godfather, godmother, you all heard what was said in the stairwell just now. Since Ethan Zhao is out here spouting nonsense, then I won't hold back anymore. Ethan brought this on himself. He threw himself into this cheating plan just to please Sophia. That's his business. But then he had the nerve to try to drag me into it too. I didn't even know about any of this, and now he's accusing me of being selfish? If I had known and said no, he'd probably hold a grudge for life. God knows, if something happened to Sophia down the line, he'd probably say it was my fault too. He calls me his friend, but is this how he treats his friends? Pulling them down into the abyss with him so he can impress a girl? Didn't even care if it destroyed my future. So let me make this clear today. If Ethan wants to borrow money for Sophia's abortion, that's your family's issue. Don't you dare drag me into it. And as for their failed cheating attempt, I can pretend I don't know anything. Whether you want to pay hush money or let it all blow up, it's none of my business. By now, Ethan had rushed into the hospital room, clearly panicked. But I wasn't done. I turned directly to him. And you, Ethan Joe, you're the kind of guy who sleeps with a girl and then helps her cheat. When she gets caught, you try to wash your hands clean. You got all the benefits, and now you want to blame me for the consequences. Right. You're the noble one, the pure-hearted one, the selfless savior. Well, let me warn you, if you dare come near me again, I'll make public every single thing you said to me in that stairwell. Let's see how well that goes with your plan to repeat the school year. After shouting all that, I took a deep breath. I looked at Mr. and Mrs. Zhao, sitting on their hospital beds, completely stunned. Though I did feel a bit sorry and guilty toward them, I knew I had to do this. If I didn't make things clear today, Ethan would absolutely try to drag me into his mess again. Everything I had bottled up from my past life had finally burst free. Ethan's face had gone pale with fury. He actually made a move, as if he was going to lunge at me, but Sophia's parents weren't about to let that happen. They rushed forward, grabbing Ethan by the hair with terrifying force. You got our daughter pregnant, and now you want her to get an abortion? Her father growled, his voice cold and venomous. You Zhao people are heartless monsters. The entire room descended into chaos. Mr. and Mrs. Zhao cried uncontrollably, wailing that they'd raised a monster of a son. Sophia's parents clung tightly to Ethan, demanding he hand over the dowry money. And Ethan? He was running around the room like a trapped rat, completely falling apart. Only Sophia Lynn remained calm throughout the chaos. She stood to the side like an outsider watching a spectacle, completely unfazed, as if none of it had anything to do with her. Then, out of nowhere, she spoke softly. Mom, Dad, stop hitting Ethan. Her father snapped back. If we don't beat him, who's gonna pay for your abortion? That said, he did let go. Seeing that, Sophia walked steadily toward Ethan Zhao. And then, smack, a loud slap echoed through the room. She had hit him. Ethan clearly hadn't expected it. The ever-gentle goddess he idolized had just struck him. His expression instantly darkened. "Sophia, what the hell are you doing?" Sophia gave a sweet, innocent smile. It looked harmless, even charming. She calmly rubbed her wrist and replied lightly, "Oh, that slap? That's your punishment for going back on your word. Didn't we agree? You'd marry me and I'd keep the baby. And now you want me to get an abortion? Not happening." "It's simple," she continued. "Either I go report you and we both go down, or you repeat the school year, get into a good college, and find a decent job to take care of me and the baby. Ethan, I trust you so much. Don't make things harder for me, okay?" Hearing those words, I froze, because I'd heard them before. In our past life, back in that narrow alley where the three of us first met, Ethan had said something strikingly similar to me. "Emily, I trust you so much. Don't make things hard for me." And suddenly I understood. Maybe Sophia had truly wanted to drag me down with her. But once she realized it wasn't possible, she gave up just as easily. Because I was never the goal. I was just a stepping stone, a tool. In the end, karma has a way of coming around. The regret Ethan carried in his past life, Sophia would make sure it came true in this one. No matter what methods she had to use, she would bind herself to him completely. I glanced at her parents, fierce and aggressive. I remembered how, in our last life, Sophia told me that if she didn't score well on her exams, her parents would force her to marry a man older than her own father. But now, not only could she marry someone like Ethan, who, at least on paper, looked respectable, she could also split the $50,000 dowry with her parents. Why wouldn't she go along with it? Looking at Sophia's radiant, satisfied smile, I couldn't help but wonder, was her getting caught cheating really just a coincidence? Even if I felt some mixed emotions deep down, I had no interest in getting involved with Ethan's life any further. I silently set down the fruit I had brought for his parents in a corner of the room and quietly left. When I got home, the first thing I did was play the recording of my conversation with Ethan for my mom. My mom, being the hot-blooded woman she was, immediately exploded. She shouted about going over to give Ethan, that little bastard, a beating. Tears prickled at the corners of my eyes as I stopped her. Meanwhile, my dad sat calmly drinking freshly brewed tea. After finishing the pot, he put the cup down and said, "Let's look for a new house and move." Okay, maybe my dad wasn't so calm after all. Later that night, when I passed by their room on the way to the bathroom, I noticed they had left the door slightly open. I overheard my mom still muttering furiously, her voice barely more than a whisper. "That damned Ethan Zhao. Trying to use our daughter to cheat on the college entrance exam? What a joke. We have to move. No way we're letting our girl stay anywhere near that boy. If someday Emily does better than him and he can't take it, who knows what kind of mess he'll stir up next. You better get on those real estate listings first thing in the morning." My dad responded groggily, "Got it, sleep now." The night was dark, but my future had never looked brighter. When college entrance exam results came out, I scored exactly as everyone had hoped. An excellent result. My parents and I spent an entire day discussing it before finally settling on the perfect university. Without Ethan Zhao in my life, I finally got to experience the college life I had always dreamed of. Friends who shared my passions, brilliant and kind professors, and even boys who pursued me with genuine, warm affection. In my senior year, when I brought my boyfriend home for the first time, my parents casually filled me in on Ethan's recent years. Turns out, the year he repeated school, he completely underperformed and only managed to get into a mediocre vocational college. Even though he and Sophia Lynn weren't legally old enough to marry, their child was born during his first year in college. Since Ethan still had school, the baby was left with Mr. and Mrs. Zhao to raise. Sophia, apparently, didn't trust him much at all. She even rented an apartment near Ethan Zhao's college. Every day, she'd show up on campus to have lunch with him. But it only took one short visit back home, just 2 days to see the baby, for Sophia Lynn to lose her grip. In that brief window, Ethan hooked up with another girl. When Sophia found out, she didn't cry or throw a fit. But not long after, Ethan ended up in the hospital, bleeding from the waist down. My mom shook her head dramatically when she told me. From the sound of it, he probably can't have kids anymore. That incident was the turning point. Mr. and Mrs. Zhou finally accepted Sophia Lin into the family. Even though Ethan insisted in pain that it was Sophia who had ruined his future, the fact was, she was the daughter-in-law they had spent their entire life savings to bring home. Sophia, of course, knew how to play the part. Whether it was in front of others or just with the Zhou elders, she acted sweet, considerate, and devoted. Everyone praised her as a good mom and a good wife. People eventually stopped mentioning her cheating scandal during the college entrance exam. Once she became a mother and a wife, everyone's focus shifted to how much she had sacrificed for the family. No one seemed to care how Ethan felt. After graduation, he was forced by his parents to move back to their hometown. I heard that now he lives like a monk, emotionally withdrawn and physically violent. He has a temper, and when he lashes out, it's Sophia who ends up hurt. But every time it happens, she puts on her pitiful face and makes everyone else blame him. That's the thing with someone like Sophia Lin. Once she latches on to you, there's no shaking her off. And through her not-so-subtle gossip, people in every nearby village now know that Ethan Zhao can't have children. They all tell him to count his blessings, that he married such an understanding woman, and he should just stop complaining. Even though he's furious inside, all he can do is go home after work like a beast of burden. Every paycheck he earns goes straight to the household. After all, with Sophia there, this is the life he deserves.